Hi, I'm Amy Seipke. I'm the Engineering, Computer Science, and Mathematics librarian here at U of M-Dearborn. And this is a training video for our Wikipedia Edit-a-thon event on the International Day of Women. And we've titled our event More Than Marie Curie, Women in STEM. So we're going to do some basic editing today. So this training will help you be able to make some significant contributions that, though they may feel minor, we'll talk about how they can have a major impact on discoverability and the richness of information available on Wikipedia about women in STEM. Oh, I did want to mention that in the spirit of open access that Wikipedia has, a lot of the training materials that I'm using today are borrowed directly from other training materials that people have openly shared as well. So if this strikes your interest, you can definitely go farther digging into Wikipedia yourself and find lots of other training that has been done on more extensively on creating new pages or any other aspects that you might find interesting. My first slide is a welcome to our physical event. If you're not coming to our physical event, then this is irrelevant to you. But if you are, here's a bit of housekeeping tidbits for us. Even if you don't attend our event in person, you can still, once you finish this training, you can still, it will give you enough information that you can do some editing on your own in your own time, whenever you'd like, whenever you have a few spare minutes that you'd like to dedicate to this task. See. Okay, so the first thing I want to stress is not to worry. One of my favorite quotes from the training materials that I was reading was, "You can't break Wikipedia, but please don't try." So as long as you're here in good faith and you're not purposely trying to break anything, odds are you won't possibly be able to. There's lots of steps that reviews and edits go through to ensure that you haven't done anything wrong that's going to break anything. These slides, I'm going to give you a lot of information today, but these slides are available on the LibGuide that I'm going to show you, so you can go back to the slides and go through them as you want. You can pause this video, you can rewind it, obviously. I also have a bunch of a downloadable PDF with some handout sheets with editing tips and some of the common commands for wiki markup if you decide you want to do edits that way. Those will also be available in the LibGuide that I'm about to show you. Okay, so Wikipedia Essentials. So getting started, what does Wikipedia need you to know? So Wikipedia is consistently ranked as one of the top 10 websites on the planet, with more visitors every day than basically any other sites. It is free and written by volunteers. Because so many people rely on it, it's crucial that what they find there is accurate, complete, and properly sourced. So we're going to share with you how to make sure that that continues to happen. It's true, Wikipedia is open and everyone can edit it, but there's a lot of collaboration behind every article. There's a lot of other people that will be working on the same things that you're working on. So the first thing that we need to discuss is the 5 key principles or pillars of Wikipedia, and how to go about ensuring that your edits are impactful and that they won't just be overturned by the next editor to come along. And just some basic guidelines for being an editor with Wikipedia. Before we start that, though, I'm going to tell you why. Why are we doing this? Wikipedia is home to 6.4 million articles, more than 6.4 million articles. And of the 1.5 million that are biographical, less than 20% have been found to be about women. This particular study that I'm citing here found the 2 biggest problems to be that women's biography pages were more likely to not have an info box or to have stuff missing from their info box, which means that when you're browsing your search engine of choice, and sometimes it'll populate, it'll just give you the answer to a question when you type a question in. That information comes from Wikipedia info boxes. So it's an extra step or two. Even if the information is on the Wikipedia page, if it's not in the info box, it's not populating directly into that search engine. So filling out those info boxes is going to be something we're going to work on today. That's going to be a way to make a pretty big, significant impact. And really all you're going to be doing is taking the information from inside the article and putting it into the info box in the proper format with the proper tags, so that it's returned as a search engine result. And the other key problem that this article in particular found was that about 20% of Wikipedia's traffic is from browsing. So you click on one article and you follow the hyperlink and you follow the hyperlink and you follow the tags at the bottom to find something else and something else and something else. So a lot of these pages about women don't have the proper tags, or they aren't hyperlinked directing to them. There aren't hyperlinks directing to them from the other pages where it would be relevant to do so, which causes them to not be as browsable or as discoverable from other related sources. So if you're looking for a researcher who did research on a particular topic, you look up that topic, you find all these names of researchers who worked on that topic. Chances are that the women who worked on it will not be as often linked out to. So that's another thing that we're going to work on today, to try to improve that as well. Okay, so there are already a couple of Wikipedia projects that are working on a similar vein, long-running groups and established projects. Two of them that we're going to talk about are the Women in Red project, which makes reference to the fact that pages, when they don't exist, are showed up. They show up as red instead of blue. So if you're reading a Wikipedia article and you see a red link, that means that there isn't a page for that yet, but the person writing it thought there ought to be. So this refers to the fact that the women's pages are often in red because the pages don't exist yet. So here's the link to their ongoing project and the things that they're doing you could get involved with as well. The other group is called 500 Women Scientists, and that's a nonprofit formed by women in science fields to increase public advocacy and knowledge about science. So there's their project page as well. And then in pursuit of their mission, part of what they do is that they regularly run Wikipedia editathons and training in specific topics for editors. So if you're interested, like I said, there's lots of different ways to participate in Wikipedia and Wikimedia. So if you're interested in doing something that we're not talking about today, this would be a good place to go to find resources on training yourself up or going to one of their trainings in order to be able to participate in anything else you're interested in. Okay, so back to those 5 pillars of Wikipedia that I said are really our guideposts to following all the community rules. So here they are. Wikipedia is an online encyclopedia that's really telling you more about what it isn't. It's not an extensive source. It is a resource for finding sources. It's a way of giving you a broad overview. It's written hopefully without a bias, just giving you the outlines of the topic and maybe what some of the controversies are, and directing you to the individual sources where you can read more about those. That speaks to number 2. It has a neutral point of view. So Wikipedia does talk about controversies, but it tries to talk about the points of the controversy instead of making an argument for either side. It's also free content, like I said, in following with their open access policy. Most of these training pieces that I found today were on there. People were sharing them freely. So anything on Wikipedia is going to be something that you can use and remix. You just have to allow other people to also use and remix what you've reused and remixed. Wikipedians, which is you and me now, because we are we've created accounts to be editors, should interact with each other in a respectful and civil manner. So if you don't like an edit someone has made, you speak to them civilly and politely. You know, always assume that everyone else is trying to do what they think is best, and sort of go at things with, you know, a team mentality that we're all trying to increase access to information. And then start, you know, negotiating what you need to negotiate from there. And then number 5 is that Wikipedia doesn't really have firm rules. So one of the rules is that they don't have rules. That just basically means that, you know, things come up, situations arise, and they sort of act and react as need be. So if a rule isn't working for a certain reason, they might just, you know, change the rule through community consensus in order to best fit the needs of what we're all trying to do here. More information about that is available at their website here. Speaking of creating new pages on Wikipedia, there are a couple of factors here in discussing like what is on Wikipedia, like what is going to be covered there. And one of the first factors that they want us to share is that it has to be something that's notable. Wikipedia is not a catalog of everything. Some things don't exist because it hasn't been covered by outside sources. So there has to be significant coverage of them. That cannot be a primary source. It has to be at least a secondary source, which means that it needs to be covered by someone other than the person who it's talking about. So you can't write a Wikipedia page about yourself. If you're famous in your field and you've been interviewed by newspapers or journals, if you've written extensively on a subject and been published, those would be sources that someone else could use to write about you. That hits point number 2 here, which is reliable sources. So it has to be a reliable source. It can't be your blog post. It can't be somebody sourcing things from your Twitter account. And it can't be you writing about yourself. It has to be someone who's independent of the subject. That means that whoever is doing the editing or creating the page for the subject is not that person. They're not trying to advertise for them. They're not, you're not looking at press releases necessarily, though they might be an acceptable source depending on what information is in them. But the editor, the author of the page needs to be independent from the subject. So verifiability. We always tell students, don't trust everything you read on the internet. That's true. Wikipedia is no different. The point of Wikipedia is not to be a source for information. It's to be a resource to help you find more details, to help you find where you should look, and to give you the terms and the outline to use in your searching for something. So when you add content to Wikipedia, you have to make sure that you're only sharing facts, that you're drawing from sources. That's going to get to the next point, which is that you're not putting anything new. You're not putting your opinion. If you've done research, you're not posting your research. You're using other reliable sources that exist outside of yourself. So you're using textbooks, literature reviews, books that were written by experts, published by reliable publishers, journal articles written by professional organizations. Sometimes you could use pop press or blog posts or press releases, but those are not as commonly used because they tend to have, be presenting things in a certain light as opposed to in the non-biased kind of way that an encyclopedia should be written. And like I said, we're going to get to the no original research. This is not where you do your academic writing. You don't publish your ideas here. This isn't for original research. You should, of course, do research, traditional library background research. You're going to look at things that other people have published to get the information that you're going to put here. Basically, every paragraph, if not every sentence, should have a citation at the end where you got that information from. So anytime that you are writing something or adding something, you need to also be adding the citation. So what source you pulled that information from. It should be at least every paragraph, if not each sentence. And you could have more than one citation for a single paragraph. That's acceptable too. Copyright and plagiarism. Like I said, this is an open access thing, but that doesn't mean you can just put everything out there. If somebody has published something, you can't take the text of it and put it in here to make it open access. It doesn't work that way. That would be plagiarizing. You can't copy word for word. You also can't really, look at the article and type each sentence by sentence separately in your own words. So you can't really sum up each sentence as you go through something. It's the way you want to do it is really more of like you read this and you're trying to explain it to somebody afterward. So you want to read through it and then go back and sort of explain the overall idea behind it. Like I've said already 100 times and probably will continue to do, this is a resource, not a source. So you're trying to tell people what information they could find if they went to that source. So you need to make sure you're doing your citations and attributions so that they know where to find it. Even if you cite your source, you can't copy it word for word. And you should not only change the words a little bit by a little bit, you want to make sure that you're just explaining it instead of rewording the words. There's a short video here if that's confusing to you. And also we librarians are really good at explaining this. So if you run across a problem where you're not sure if you're citing something too closely or paraphrasing something too closely, ask us and we can help you. But there is also a video here if you'd like to look at that. And so these are 4 questions that you can click on to make sure that you know the answer and that you understand those 5 pillars, as well as the verifiability, citations, and notability. So go ahead and pause this video, click, follow those links, check out those questions and make sure that you understand what we're looking at before we go on. I think I will go ahead and do this one last slide before we pause. So for more training, there is tons, like I said, of other places that you can get training. For today's event, we're going to focus on making small edits to pages that are either stubs or start class and maybe up into C class articles. The articles on Wikipedia are all rated for completeness. And so your A, B, they also have other classifications, which mean they're like ideal articles or like they're featured articles. Those are going to be ones that have been looked over and looked over and looked over by multiple editors. Those will probably have editors following them so that they can review every edit that's made on them. So in order to make the greatest impact today, we're going to focus on making small edits to pages that are not very complete. That way we can read a source, add information, we can add the citations that need to be added, we can add the cross links, cross hyperlinks between related articles, we can tag things with tags that will make them more discoverable, and we can work on those info boxes. So for all those things, we're just going to stick to the start class, the stubs, and the C class articles. But if you are interested in doing more, that is wonderful, and there is plenty more for you to do. So this is where you can go to find some training to continue learning and to hopefully continue contributing after today. All right, so I am going to go back here and ask you to pause and check on those, check those for your understanding, and then we will come back in a minute and I will make a separate video to get us started on our actual editing. Thank you.